And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, can you move out of the way? And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said that there is, in fact, a sub on the counter. And then she continued to say that there is a Subway sandwich with meat on it on a counter. And then she said that there is a Subway sandwich on top of a wooden table that is known commonly as a counter. And then she said that there is a sub on top of the counter, still in the wrap, not infested with bacteria nor plagues, but in fact a sandwich on a counter. And then she said that there's a sub on the counter. And then what she said in the next sentence was, there's a sub on the counter. This sub in particularly, this sub in fact had meat, lettuce, and 2 breads closing all of the condiments in. And it was in fact on top of the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said that there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then I said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. Then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. Then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. can hear you, George Washington. You're hiding inside of them. There's no running, George Washington. I will rip you out of their ribcage soon enough. Man, I can't believe that they put George Washington, my favorite Minecraft YouTuber, into the ribcage of bounty hunters. I just can't believe it. And then she said, there's a sandwich on the counter. And then she said that there is a George Washington on the counter. And then she said, there's a sandwich containing various slices of meat, commonly salmon, chicken, and a little bit of dog meat, carefully placed on with a piece of lettuce and mayo. And then these condiments is what made the sandwich, and this sandwich was the best sandwich I've ever eaten. It in fact was so good that I strangled my father to have another slice of that. It was the best tasting George Washington I've ever had. And then I continued to keep on eating the George Washington as if nothing was happening. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. And then she said, there's a sub on the counter. I didn't know what was a sub at the time, but after careful examination, I have found out that a Subway sandwich mixed with meat condiments known as salmon, chicken, and a little bit of dog meat, finished with just a bit of lettuce and having about 1 tablespoon of mayo on the sandwich was just about enough to quench my thirst for mayo, and to make me no longer hungry, but in fact want me to have more of the specific kind of sandwich that was. So, goodbye, Father. I'm taking your sandwich. And then I took my mom's phone and looked at the message. There's a sub on the counter. At the time, I thought, wow, a horse, but and then I thought, wow, what an amazing thing. This thing tastes so good, I might even kill for it. And in fact, this sandwich was so damn tasty that I could not bother to take. I did not even bother paying it the next time I visited that Subway sandwich shop. I really wish I could see this sandwich more often on menus, but this sandwich is in fact no longer on menus. And I wonder why, and I'm thinking about starting a revolution against the government, so then I may make a law that all Subway sandwiches need a menu that has a sandwich that contains 3 different types of meat: salmon, chicken, and also dog meat. But also with mayo and lettuce, because without this lettuce, it would not taste as crunchy nor as good. So this lettuce was really spectacular. I would definitely have this again. And then she said, "There's a sub on the counter." And then I questioned myself even further this time. Instead of thinking furthermore, I just took a bite and then I consumed the rest without the need of another sandwich. I I thought that maybe in about an hour I shall consume this amazing containment of meats and mayo. But however, though, if there's someone out there that thinks that tree bark or this thing called the ananas is should belong on sandwiches, I think we should bring him over to my house to force him to birth out more dogs for the dog meat, so then we may have more Subway sandwiches. And if there wasn't any Subway sandwiches, I would perish with the force of not dying, that I would tell God to go away, and my duty's not done yet, and I do not have permission to die yet. I think what I should do is, if I do perhaps die, I will come back to life and then finish one more piece of sandwich and then make it so every single leader of this world may have a taste of that sandwich. If not, then I will come back and murder them with my rusty knife from the ground that I've been buried with. And I have the feel of absolutely destroying the wildlife for more of these Subway sandwiches, because if there wasn't any more of these Subway sandwiches, humanity would not function as properly. And if I perhaps did not have any sandwiches, then I may make a factory in China to make more sandwiches, and then I will have a ship go through the northeast of Canada, so then it may be delivered to Europe and or North America. And I want to spread these sandwiches across the world, because without these sandwiches, I have a vision that most people on this earth would perish if they did not have a singular bite of this sandwich. This sandwich was so good, I went to sleep last night, and then I picked up my phone, and then I read my mom's text message, and it said, "There's a sub on the counter." And then I thought, a tasty snack. But then I remembered that my mother has been dead for 3 years now, and she's still making sandwiches. And I thought, man, that sucks, and then proceeded to take another bite out of the sandwich, and then immediately forgot and didn't care anymore. So then I thought, man, this sandwich, it's really something. And do you know what did I do after that? Can you shut up? And then he said, "There's a sub on the counter." And then I proceeded to eat that sandwich one more time. And then that sandwich was extremely tasty. Man, that sandwich was the best thing I've ever eaten. I absolutely love that sandwich. I feel like these Subway sandwiches should make more sandwiches, because if not for this, I would not have eaten any more sandwiches, and that would be devastating. So I will eat more sandwiches for the following years. And if I do not see any more sandwiches, then I will go up and beyond to try to bring back these sandwiches. For in fact, these sandwiches is what gave me life for about 7 years ago. And I have a feeling that if it weren't for these sandwiches, humanity would be in ruins because of the sandwich gods that they had not known about until now. But, however though, I do feel that this sandwich, although was great, I had to rest one more night, and I had to stop thinking about the sandwich. And then I woke up, and then took another bite of the sandwich, and then proceeded to, what is it called? Oh yeah, that's right, consume it. And then I got a text message from my phone that said, there's a sub on the counter. And then I thought, yay, another one. But I know that this time that it's my dead mother. And then I look at who was it from. And then it was from none other than my bald dad, who in fact hates these sandwiches, and I killed him over for them about maybe 6 years ago. And then I thought, wow, these sandwiches are so great, I think we should make them out of humans. And then these sandwiches, they just tasted so goddamn good that I have to make a video about them. On where? On SoundCloud, or Spotify, TikTok, Twitch, or maybe even YouTube. But who knows, I may even start a government in the middle of Quebec, Canada, so then I may harvest maple syrup and try to experiment it with sandwiches to see how amazing it can be. And if I find out that it isn't good, then I will go on to experiment more with human flesh or flesh of a small bird. And if that doesn't work, then I assume that we should kill all living beings on this earth for more sandwiches. And if it wasn't for these sandwiches, I would